Hisitmik, this is your Oldacon Tech Key Kiamik. It's not just a number on a thermometer. It's a death warrant signed by nature herself. At this temperature, the very act of breathing becomes a hazard. Every lung full of air feels like inhaling crushed glass as the moisture in your chest crystallizes instantly. In the vast, merciless white void of the Alaskan wilderness, a man crawls out from a twisted heap of burning metal. For him, the word rescue has been erased from existence. No radio, no sleeping bag, no map, stripped of every luxury of modern civilization. He is left with only his primal fears and a small, orange plastic lighter in his pocket. 1 cubic centimeter of butane gas. That is his only ally today. We journey to the edge of human biology, to a place where science says no mammal should survive. This is a story of ice, wolves, and the terrifying power of a single spark. Brace yourself. The only thing you're about to feel is the bone.
For the veteran pilot, the morning began like any other 1,000 flights out of Anchorage. Flying in Alaska is an art form. You have to speak the language of the wind. You have to read the storm and the color of the clouds. Below him, the mountain ranges stretched out like jagged diamonds under the pale sun. But the wilderness is most lethal when it appears most serene. Without warning, the engine coughed. That rhythmic, comforting hum was replaced by a terrifying vacuum. Gravity took hold. The pilot scanned his mental emergency checklist in seconds. Oil pressure 0, altitude dropping fast, landing gear non-functional. The valley floor below looked like a soft bed of powdered sugar, but it was a deception, a trap hiding jagged boulders and frozen riverbeds. When the wings finally clipped the treetops, the sound was a violent scream that woke every predator in the forest. The screech of metal on rock echoed across the valley, and then silence. Only the hiss of hot oil leaking into the snow remained. The man opened his eyes to see snowflakes drifting through the shattered cockpit glass. The blood trickling down his forehead froze into crimson ice before it could hit his chin. As he stumbled out of the wreckage, he realized something terrifying. Silence can be incredibly loud. Thousands of miles of uninhabited white wasteland in every direction. He made his first fatal mistake. Fearing an explosion that would never come, he ran. He ran miles away from his only shelter, deep into the heart of the valley, with nothing but that small lighter in his pocket.
In Alaska, the sun doesn't set like a friend. It retreats like a retreating army, leaving you to the mercy of the night. As the orange glow faded into a bruised purple, the temperature plummeted to -48 degrees. His thin flight jacket was now as useless as a sheet of paper. Hypothermia began its slow, serpentine crawl through his limbs. First came the uncontrolled shivering, the brain's final, desperate command to the muscles to generate heat. When the shivering stops, death begins. With fingers so stiff they felt like wooden pegs, he reached for the lighter, a cheap plastic tool. The click of the flint wheels sounded like a gunshot in the frozen stillness. First attempt, nothing. Second attempt, a fleeting spark. The wind was lying in wait, ready to choke the flame before it could breathe. He dug through the snow, reaching the frozen earth, piling up tiny strips of fabric torn from his clothes. On the third strike, a miracle, a tiny plume of smoke. He nursed that smoke with his own breath, feeding it like the dying embers of his own soul. When the flame finally took hold, the ice on his eyelashes began to melt. But a new nightmare was beginning. Finding dry wood in Alaska is like looking for a dry stone at the bottom of the sea. Everything was soaked in frost. To keep that fire alive through the first night, he had to burn his wallet, his license, and finally, the most painful sacrifice, the photos of his family.
As each face turned to ash, he felt a piece of his sanity freezing along with them. By the morning of the fourth day, hunger began to eclipse the pain of the cold. His stomach was a knot of agony, seemingly devouring itself. He tried to chew on frozen lichen and pine needles dug from beneath the drifts, but they left only a metallic bitterness in his mouth. His body was cannibalizing its own muscle tissue just to keep his heart beating. But the physical hunger was nothing compared to the psychological warfare. On the fifth night, he saw them. 2 pairs of glowing eyes just beyond the reach of his fire. An Alaskan timber wolf. It didn't attack. It didn't have to. It simply watched with the cold, calculated patience of the wild. It was waiting for the fire to die, waiting for the man to stop shivering, waiting for the spark to fade. The pilot didn't sleep that night. He spent the hours waving a burning branch in the dark, a desperate torch against the abyss. He realized then that survival in Alaska isn't a physical race. It's a game of psychological chess. If he succumbed to the fear, the forest would swallow him in seconds. Then he felt the weight of the lighter. It was lighter than before. The gas was almost gone. He could no longer afford to let the fire go out. He had reached the point of no return. The Zeigarnik effect began to take hold of his mind. His brain, haunted by the unfinished business of his life, played cruel tricks on him. He heard the sound of a piano in the wind. He saw his grandfather walking across the snow. The frostbite was turning his toes black, a sign of tissue death, but his mind was inviting him to lie down, to sleep, to give up. "It's warm in the snow," his hallucinations whispered. He gripped the lighter so hard the plastic bit into his palm. He refused to close his eyes.
Day 12. The man was no longer a pilot. He was a shadow, a spectral creature crawling through the drifts. He could no longer walk. The frostbite had claimed his feet. He moved on his hands and knees, dragging dry brush back to his fading hearth. Hope had been replaced by a grim, mechanical acceptance of death. And then, through the howl of the gale, a new sound, a mechanical rhythm, a propeller. It wasn't a hallucination this time. A small supply plane, miles away, heading toward a distant mining camp, appeared as a speck on the horizon. The man knew he had one final card to play. He dragged a heavy, oil-soaked piece of leather from the wreckage, something he had saved for this exact moment, and threw it onto his fire. A thick, oily column of black smoke billowed into the pristine white sky, a scream for help written in carbon. The plane passed. It kept going. The man's world collapsed. He slumped into the snow, ready to let the cold take him. But then the speck turned. The wings tilted. The pilot had seen the black stain on the white world. When the rescue team descended, they found a man who defied every medical logic. His core temperature was at the threshold of clinical death. As they lifted him into the helicopter, his frozen fingers were still clamped shut around that empty orange lighter. Months of surgery followed. Fingers were lost, toes were sacrificed, but he walked out of that hospital. He had stared into the eyes of the white death and forced it to blink.
If you visit that desolate valley in Alaska today, you might still find the rusted bones of a small plane. But that wreckage isn't just a monument to a crash. It's a testament to the moment a human being refused to disappear. This story teaches us that in our darkest, coldest hours, we don't need a miracle, we just need a spark. And as long as your will protects that spark, no storm on earth can blow it out. Could you have kept that fire burning for 12 days while the wolves watched from the shadows? Or would you have let the cold lull you into that final, permanent sleep? Let us know in the comments. For more tales of impossible human resilience, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Remember, the greatest storms cannot swallow those who keep their inner fire burning.